The Office of the Director of National Intelligence recently and quietly released its 2026 threat assessment. Buried within the pages of this report is a stark admission. The United States intelligence community assesses that China has no active plan to invade Taiwan in 2027, nor does Beijing have any established timeline for forced unification. For veteran geopolitical analysts reading the document, this assessment is hardly breaking news. It reads more like a heavily delayed confession of a massive institutional failure, which raises a multi-billion-dollar question. How did the entire American national security apparatus, from the Pentagon to the halls of Congress, build a sprawling strategic roadmap around a date that turned out to be a myth? The origin of the 2027 timeline traces back to 2021 to a single man, Admiral Phil Davidson, then the commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Forces. Davidson testified under oath in this Senate hearing room, telling lawmakers he believed China would make its move on Taiwan within 6 years. He offered this highly specific projection with no concrete timeline from Beijing to back it up. Yet almost instantly, that 6-year projection was branded the Davidson window. It became the unquestioned baseline for American strategic thinking. The reaction swept through the defense ecosystem. Military budgets swelled to meet the perceived deadline. Regional deployments were aggressively repositioned. Think tanks published daily threat models, and media outlets stoked public anxiety to a fever pitch. Davidson's speculative timeline provided the specific date the American strategic apparatus needed to accelerate its regional pivot. The architects of this strategy fell victim to a basic analytical error. They equated a nation's physical ability to wage a war with its political determination to start one. The factual premise is true. Beijing has explicitly ordered the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, China's official military force, to rapidly expand its modern offensive capabilities. But possessing the hardware to execute an invasion does not automatically equal an active political intention to pull the trigger. The United States maintains a nuclear arsenal capable of global destruction, yet the existence of that hardware is distinct from an active plan to deploy it. This model illustrates the gap between a loaded weapon and the specific, separate political decision required to fire it. Confusing the physical capability to act with the deliberate choice to act is a profound systemic failure of intelligence analysis. Top American leaders made this elementary mistake because they view China through a deeply ingrained ideological filter. This filter relies on two contradictory delusions. On one hand, it views the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, China's sole ruling authority, as fragile and on the verge of economic collapse. On the other hand, it paints the same party as an irrational, hyper-aggressive actor eager to launch a war. Neither version reflects reality. Xi Jinping is a leader defined by extreme strategic patience, carefully weighing long-term outcomes over impulsive military adventures. Xi's actual calculus is calculated and cautious. Launching a premature war before any natural fractures appear in the alliance between Washington and a currently intact Taiwan would be disastrously counterproductive. The massive devastation of the Ukraine conflict served as a sobering lesson to Beijing. Modern warfare carries unpredictable, ruinous costs that spiral beyond initial projections. China's economy is heavily reliant on the stability of global trade routes. A war over Taiwan, even a mathematically victorious one, would devastate that trade network and completely contradict Beijing's stated goal of a peaceful economic rise. The American strategic echo chamber aggressively monetized and amplified the 2027 myth. This ecosystem functions across 4 pillars: military, think tanks, media, and Congress. One node generates threat data, the next justifies funding, accelerating the cycle. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Analysts pointing out flaws were marginalized, while pundits peddling extreme threat models were rewarded with outsized influence. The result was a forced arms race. Under immense political pressure from this echo chamber, Taiwan continually expanded its defense budget to meet a fabricated deadline. Which brings us back to the 2026 intelligence report and its silent retraction of the 2027 myth. There were no press conferences apologizing for the error, and no fanfare. Still, in a political era where vast institutional mistakes are almost never acknowledged, a formal correction deserves to be recognized. Global geopolitics shows that expensive strategic distortions often arise from a nation's own ideological illusions rather than an adversary's weapons.